Well, there is a motion being discussed today at Vancouver City Council that looks at offering more support to the arts and cultural community in this city. That comes in the form of funding, but it also has to do with space. Now, one person who is trying to get her art space going is Talie Perry. She's the owner of Chill Pill Comedy. That's a local comedy brand that's operating out of Chill X Studio in Mount Pleasant. Talie's been good enough to join us in studio. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. You were able to get a lease for your comedy club, is that right?
Yes, I was.
Now tell me about the space that you managed to find.
The space we found was different from your regular comedy club. It's on street level with white walls, really high ceilings, and we really wanted to be different, but we went up significantly in our rent because it was really important for us to be accessible.
Yeah.
Many spaces in the city you can't get into if you're not able-bodied. And we also wanted to be in Mount Pleasant. We think it's a really vibrant artistic community, and a lot of the comedy is downtown. So we wanted to kind of move out a little bit.
Yeah, right. And I think I remember any comedy club I've ever gone into, I've either gone up or down a narrow staircase
Exactly.
to get into it. Well, that's interesting that this is street level. What is it a multi-purpose space? What's the space like?
So that's what our goal was. We started in comedy, but I think in this economy, this day and age, it's not smart to have a one thing space.
Yeah.
So we started in comedy, but we do everything from drag, improv, poetry festivals. We just had a celebration of life. We do fundraising. We've had a wedding. So we really want to be an everything space for the arts and community.
Okay. Now tell me about trying to set it up, though, as a comedy venue. I mean, what hoops did you have to jump through?
The entire situation being in the arts is hoop after hoop after hoop. We tried to follow every point on the city website, and it's lacking a lot of transparency. They're not really providing resources. They make it seem a lot more simple. It's taken us 2 years to get past the development permit phase. I think the license comes next, but it's not without limitations. Quite frankly, because of what we do, the city has basically said we don't fit into your typical definition of zoning.
Right.
And that needs to be addressed.
Did you need to rezone then? I mean, what are you zoned, what is the space zoned for to begin with?
So we're actually the first tenants ever to have this address.
Yeah.
Before we were in there, it was a parking garage.
Okay.
And it was completely renovated and perfect for what we needed. But because nobody has ever been in there, I guess when they were renovating the property, they put it as wholesale. And so even though we're not changing anything in there structurally, everything we have is really removable. Yeah. We're still having to go through this huge, expensive process of rezoning to be an artist space.
And what are you surrounded by in the neighborhood? This is Manitoba Street in Mount Pleasant. So are you mostly surrounded by industrial stuff, or?
That's what the city is trying to say. They're trying to say that they'd like to keep the integrity of the industrial neighborhood. Mm-hmm. But across the street from us, there's an animation studio. There's basically two buildings in one. There's a jewelry store, jewelry warehouse. There's a leather studio. There's casting offices. It's a very creative area. And in our space, it wouldn't make sense for somebody to be doing wholesale in there.
And so what are the limitations that they're trying to impose on you then?
Oh, it's, I believe you're also going to be talking with our architect who we've had to use to kind of help with some of the bureaucratic stuff that's just so complicated. We've had to really argue that we're art. So I think the city really needs to change their definition of what arts and culture is, because these days art is hybrid and it shouldn't just be institutions and galleries. Because we're now trying to go for an artist studio, when you look at the zoning and the bylaws before you sign a lease, it says an artist studio is an outright use. Yeah. But it hasn't been outright for us because we've had to argue how we're art.
Right.
So from what I understand, it's going to come with some pretty severe limitations, and I'm not entirely sure what that will be. It's sort of, I have to take it day by day with the city. We may only be able to do 6 events per month. They say workshops or classes to hone your craft are part of that.
Yeah.
So it's extremely limiting.
And what about using it as a performance space?
Again, would fall into 6 events per month.
Okay, and that's obviously not going to be enough to pay the bills. You've got to stay way busier than that.
Yeah, that's not enough to pay the bills, and their idea of what an event is crazy.
So is this just a lack of understanding on the part of the city when it comes to what it actually takes to run an art space in the city and the lengths you have to go in order to make it work?
I think so. I've had to completely reverse engineer and teach myself everything to even get to this place. And along the way, I've asked people in the city, have you even gone through this process? And they've said no. So why in their training are they not having to go through this? Before I signed a lease, which is my livelihood, which is everything for me, not to mention what it means to me passion-wise.
Yeah.
They make it seem a lot more simple than it is. But nobody, when I'm calling the city, nobody has any answers or any resources. It took 2 years for someone to recommend that I talk to the arts and culture, the services, and they have been super helpful for us. Without them, we would have been in big trouble.
And how are other people pulling this off? I mean, you do see, and in Mount Pleasant, in fact, I mean, you see what are sometimes called studios, what are sometimes called galleries, but, end up in the evening. They might host a comedy show. They might host as you say, a drag show or something. And then maybe they turn into a different space during the daytime.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is sort of how they started, whether they're not-for-profit. In our case, I'd love to start a branch of a nonprofit, but it takes 2 years before you can even see any grant money, and our rent is extremely high.
Yeah.
I think it depends on really where you started, and I think we've sort of had some unfair treatment because we did start as a comedy brand, and they really argue that comedy isn't art.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. That sounds like, City Hall. Talie, we'll leave it there for now, but keep us posted, okay? Because I really do want to know what happens here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time with us. Talie Perry, the owner of Chill Pill Comedy. That is a space on Manitoba Street, a multi-venue space on Manitoba Street.